Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivedanta Jaya Shri
That's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Yeah, I felt like it.
Yeah. I put them behind. Oh, you got them engaged, well done.
Hold my hand, they will sweat. Be gentle.
Well, obviously. Don't do it, it's disrespectful.
Who's that?
Krishna. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Vasudevaya. So today we'll be reading from chapter 6, entitled Dhyana Yoga, verses 9 and 10. Suhun mitrari udasina madhyasta dvesha bandhusu sadhusva apicha papeshu samabuddhir vishishyate. Suhun mitrari udasina madhyasta dvesha bandhusu sadhusva apicha papeshu Samabuddhir vishishyate. Suhun mitrari udasina madhyastha dvesha bandhusu sadhusva apicha papeshu samabuddhir vishishyate. Text 10. Yogi yunjita satatam atmanam rahasi stitha Ekaki yata chitatma nirashir aparigraha. Yogi yunjita satatam atmanam rahasi stita.
Yogi yunjita satatam
Atmanam rahasi stita.
Atmanam rahasi sita.
Ekaki yata chitatma
Ekaki yata chitatma
nirashira parigraha.
Nirashira parigraha.
So I'll just read the translation for text 9 and we'll do word for text 10. And there's no purport for text 9 as well. So text 9. A person is considered still further advanced when he regards honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral, mediators, the envious, friends and enemies, the pious and the sinners, all with an equal mind. Text 10. A transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind and self in relationship with the Supreme. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschataya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudi Gaura Bhaktivrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So just read the purport. Krishna is realized in different degrees as Brahman, Paramatma and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna consciousness means, concisely, to be always engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. But those who are attached to the impersonal Brahman or the localized Supersoul are also partially Krishna conscious, because impersonal Brahman is the spiritual ray of Krishna and Supersoul is the all-pervading partial expansion of Krishna. Thus the impersonalist and the mediators are also indirectly Krishna conscious. A directly Krishna conscious person is the topmost transcendentalist because such a devotee knows what is meant by Brahman and Paramatma. His knowledge of the absolute truth is perfect, whereas the impersonalist and the meditative yogi are imperfectly Krishna conscious. Nevertheless, all of these are instructed herewith to be constantly engaged in their particular pursuits so that they may come to the highest perfection sooner or later. The first business of a transcendentalist is to keep the mind always on Krishna. One should think of Krishna and not forget him even for a moment. Concentration of the mind on the Supreme is called samadhi or trance. In order to concentrate the mind, one should always remain in seclusion and avoid disturbance by external objects. He should be very careful to accept favorable and reject unfavorable conditions that affect his realization. And in perfect determination, he should not hanker after unnecessary material things that entangle him by feelings of possessiveness. All these perfections and precautions are perfectly executed when one is directly in Krishna consciousness, because direct Krishna consciousness means self-abnegation, wherein there is very little chance for material possessiveness. Srila Rupa Goswami characterizes Krishna consciousness in this way. Anasaktasya vishayan yatharham upayunjitaha nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchyate prapanchikataya buddhya hari sambandhi vastuna mumukshubhi parityagya vairagyam falgukatyate. When one is not attached to anything, but at the same time accepts everything in relation to Krishna, one is rightly situated above possessiveness. On the other hand, one who rejects everything without knowledge of its relationship to Krishna is not as complete in his renunciation. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 2.555 to 2.56, 256. A Krishna conscious person well knows that everything belongs to Krishna, and thus he is always free from feelings of personal possession. As such, he has no hankering for anything on his own personal account. He knows how to accept things in favor of Krishna consciousness and how to reject things unfavorable to Krishna consciousness. He is always aloof from material things because he is always transcendental and he is always alone, having nothing to do with persons not in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, a person in Krishna consciousness is the perfect yogi. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. So, I think first of all, I'll just do a quick summary of chapter 6 until now, what's happened. So, chapter 6 is entitled Dhyana Yoga. And Krishna presents Dhyana Yoga as an alternative actually to the previous method he had prescribed for yoga to connect with the Supreme, which is to give up the results of all our works to Krishna, to the Supreme. Krishna mentioned that previously, but then he gives an alternative here instead in chapter 6. He mentions in chapter 5 briefly about Ashtanga Yoga, and now he's going more into detail about this process of Sankhya Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga. So, initially in the first chapter, text 1, Krishna tells Arjuna that one must work, actually. Working is, one should not renounce his work. So one has to work. But the point is that to become free from the karma of work, one has to actually give up the results of work rather than giving up the work itself. Then Krishna says in the second verse that this renunciation is yoga actually. Because in yoga what you have to do is you have to renounce everything external from the material world, all the sense objects, so your senses do not become stimulated by them. But for a Krishna conscious person, renouncing the fruits of one's work means that offering one's results of one's work to Krishna. So the criteria, this Dhyana yoga process, actually in Bhakti yoga you can actually do without actually giving up the work itself, giving up the results, and without having to go away in a forest. And Krishna recommends that you shouldn't just give up your work, because that doesn't actually free you from the material world, actually. Because the actual binding force for us in the material world is actually the desire to enjoy the material world. And until that desire is gone, no matter if we go as far away from maybe the contemporary society, or try to live off-grid or anything like that, we will still not be satisfied, because we're still bound to the material world. We're still identified with the false ego, trying to enjoy separately from Krishna. So yeah. So rather than... Actually, a Krishna conscious person does stop all material activities as well, because the activities he's engaged in, the sense objects, are not actually material, they're actually spiritual. So he's actually not engaging in sense gratification of the body anyway. He's trying to engage in Krishna's senses. And that way he's actually nourishing the spiritual senses within himself. And that way he gets peace from within, enjoyment from within. And then, after that, Krishna talks that, so in context of this Dhyana yoga, Krishna says that mind control is very important, actually, in performing this Dhyana yoga, because Dhyana yoga is actually the process to make the mind tranquil, in order with the aim of feeling the presence of the super soul within the heart, within one's heart. Yeah, so that's a very austere process, actually, Krishna describes. Yeah, like you have to be very advanced in sense control, controlling many life airs within the body, controlling all these subtle energies within the body. Yeah. So when the mind is tranquil, it can perceive the present. It's as if Krishna describes that it's actually that one has actually achieved the super soul. Yeah. And but the problem is that our mind, this is such an austere process for us, actually. This Dhyana yoga process, Ashtanga yoga, that even Arjuna says, even Arjuna, who's the greatest of archers, even he finds it so difficult. So what to speak of us? To shut down the mind, to withdraw pratyahara from the external senses. But actually, although in Dhyana yoga these processes seem quite austere, all these criteria can actually be fulfilled just by practicing Bhakti yoga. So it's the same process, but with a slightly different twist. Instead, we're thinking of Krishna instead of the Super Soul, which is actually on a higher platform. Yes. So conquering the mind is difficult, because the mind, false ego, intelligence are the sitting places of lust, envy and greed, I believe. Might be wrong in that verse exactly. So yeah, and then Krishna goes on to say that such a person who's achieved this super soul has this self-realization of his spiritual nature as his nature as being spiritual, and has this super soul realization. he's attained transcendence. He's transcendental, actually. And to him, all this material world, material conception, honor, dishonor, pain, pleasure, all actually insignificant, actually. They're all the same to him. Then he goes on to say that that such persons, such transcendental persons, they perceive the pebbles, stones, and gold as all the same. I found this quite interesting. How can you find gold different from pebbles and stones? But I understood from this that it actually, in comparison to the transcendental realization, transcendental knowledge that one gains through that, in comparison to that knowledge, all these pebbles, stones, and gold are actually all mundane from that platform. So, for example, like one may try to understand Krishna consciousness through scholarship, mundane scholarship, but that's all on the mental platform. But Krishna consciousness means devotional service unto the Supreme. Krishna consciousness means devotional service to Krishna, and in comparison to the service and that all these mundane scholarships actually, they're actually quite insignificant. So now we move on to the verse for today, and a person is considered even further advanced, actually, according to Krishna, when he sees everyone, or regardless of the external features of the person, to be more advanced than the person, the yogi, the transcendentalist. So a person is more advanced if he sees everyone equally than someone who has super soul realization. How, like, that's what he's saying here. How is that? And that got me thinking, how is that actually possible? Someone has super soul realization. Someone knows their spiritual identity. No. Someone knows that someone knows that they're actually not part of this material world. They have self-realization that they're actually spirit. They may not necessarily have the knowledge of their spiritual identity in the spiritual world from this super soul level, but still they have that conception that I'm the spirit soul. Yet persons who see everyone with an equal mind are actually more advanced, according to Krishna. So what does this mean? Prabhupada doesn't have a purport to this, but you can try to speak on something based on other purports he's written about, and other my research, some of my research, that it's actually that what's more advanced than seeing the super soul within oneself and having self-realization is to see the super soul within other people, and to see Krishna within other people. And yeah, that's quite amazing. So we are, for us conditioned souls, we are, instead of seeing the super soul, instead of being Pandita Samadarshina, seeing everyone with an equal mind, seeing everyone, a cow, a brahmana, a dog eater, an elephant. He sees the super soul within everyone. But for us, we actually just judge according to the external features, the external positions of a person, what their name is, what their job is, what they've achieved, or and this is because we're seeing the false ego and not the spirit soul within that person, who is actually that person. So we can. So these people mentioned here, the well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, neutral, mediators. They're pretty ordinary people, but what to speak of? If we can make misjudgments about such persons, ordinary people, what to speak of advanced personalities like Srila Prabhupada and the great sannyasis we have in our ISKCON, and so many great devotees. And also devotees like Haridas Thakur, who was apparently born in a Muslim caste family, So it's easy for us to make that assumption that, oh, this person's a lowborn, or that is very easy. Yeah, this is a big problem actually, even in society nowadays. In India, there's a big problem with caste system. In Nepal as well, caste discrimination. The Brahmins think they're superior to everyone, and they had kept the knowledge secret from, I don't know. So basically, there's a monopoly on these titles that I'm a Brahmana, I'm from a Goswami family. Like that. In Nectar of Instruction, text 6, see if I can find it quickly. Nectar of Instruction, text 6. It says that being situated in his original Krishna conscious position, a pure devotee does not identify with the body. Such a devotee should not be seen from a materialistic point of view. Indeed, one should overlook a devotee as having a body born in a low family, a body with a bad complexion, a deformed body, or a diseased or infirm body. According to ordinary vision, such imperfections may seem prominent in the body of a pure devotee, but despite such seeming defects, But despite such seeming defects, the body of a pure devotee cannot be polluted. It is exactly like the waters of the Ganges, which is sometimes during the rainy season are full of bubbles, foam and mud, but the Ganges waters do not become polluted. Those who are advanced in spiritual understanding will bathe in the Ganges without considering the condition of the water. So here it's clearly explicitly stated that we should overlook devotee having seeing devotee from a materialistic point of view. So like I said, there's a monopoly on such titles like Brahmin, Kshatriya, and they look down upon other castes. Also, there's in the purport to this text, Nectar of Instruction text, it also describes that apparently there's a sect in called the Nityananda Vangsha Goswami, who there's like an undercurrent protest going on against ISKCON and Srila Prabhupada that is not bona fide, because according to them that only those born in the Goswami family are allowed to take sannyas. But clearly in this verse, Krishna is like explicitly refuting this. It's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and this is written by Rupa Goswami. So it's instruction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna himself. So yet such groups, they still, some kind of ignorance, that refute Prabhupada, that American Goswamis cannot take sannyas. So that's quite mad actually. And and also in the modern world, like in our recent history as well, there's been a domination in the past, and maybe even now, like on the economy through white superiority in the economy. There's through racism, they portray certain images in certain way and perception of people. So that's also going on. They have a very Western standard, thinking that this is the way it should be, and they judge all others that do not fit into the criteria as, for example, like when judging psychologists, when they judge, when they make a criteria for mental health illness, and obviously it's based on a Western standard. Many of the foreigners, they have different behaviors, and because they do not fit into this, they can consider them as abnormal or bizarre, and they can classify them as mentally ill, or all these things are going on. And because we're judging based on the externals a lot. Yeah. So yeah, we should train ourselves, because when it comes to devotional service, this perception is very dangerous, especially when we see great exalted devotees and we try to bring them down to our conditioned level. Like we start to perceive them from our limited perception, and we put them in a box that, oh, this person is like this person is like that. Like, for example, so many, when Prabhupada came to America, there were some people seeking spirituality, but they had their own conceptions of what spirituality should be like, what a guru should be, how a guru should behave, how a guru should look like. So they would look at Prabhupada and kind of examine him and say, oh, he's wearing glasses, so he can't be advanced personality. He has a double chin. He can't be, he's not. Maybe he might be not so well knowledgeable on mundane topics and mundane material affairs. Like, yeah, that may have been going on, and from then they may consider him to be not up to their standard, some kind of standard they've concocted. But little do they know, like, all these characteristics, even physical characteristics of Prabhupada, like having a double chin, these are all actually, and the shape of his head, all these things are mentioned, that certain physiognomy of but these people, they are not able to read such science as well, and so they make misjudgments, and they didn't submit to Prabhupada just based on these external features. And those devotees that stayed, you can see in Prabhupada memories how much advancement they've made, how much love they have for Krishna and Prabhupada. It's beautiful. So yeah, when we judge a devotee, especially an exalted devotee, based on their external features, we are likely to cause an offense, and that's very dangerous in our spiritual advancement. There's something called the mad elephant offense. It's like an elephant walks into a nicely trimmed garden and he causes havoc. Yeah. And spoils everything. So that's like analogy that when we make offense, our devotional plant becomes destroyed. So we should be very careful not to bring down such personalities down to our level. And so what should we do instead? Okay, I'm limited, my mind is limited, so what do I focus on? I'm only seeing the external behavior. How should I see them then? What is the appropriate way of perceiving such devotees? Actually, we should be looking at their internal mood. And this is mentioned in Prabhupada's purport to Nectar of Instruction, text 6. We should look at the internal mood, which is that we should focus on how are they actually rendering devotional service to the Lord. That's the internal mood we should be focusing on, rather than judging by the externals. Oh, he's doing this, that, No, internally he may be chastising a devotee, but he's trying to correct them to bring them up to a higher platform. Yeah. So we should be very careful how we perceive such devotees, and for our own sake. Yeah. So I think I'll move on to the next verse really quickly. So I'll read that again. Text 10. A transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind and self in relationship with the Supreme. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness. So, oh yeah, and of course one thing I forgot to mention is that when we're seeing the internal mood of a devotee, rather than the external, we get to associate with something higher. And by associating with that something higher, then we can actually become purified. That's very important. So that's why we should see the internal mood. And yes, and this next verse, Prabhupada talks about how impersonalists and those on the Paramatma level are actually indirectly Krishna conscious. So yeah, it's actually quite an advanced stage, actually. So from this, but still, he says that one who realizes the Bhagwan of the Absolute Truth is actually directly Krishna conscious. So from this verse, the mood of Srila Prabhupada is that he wants to establish Krishna as the Absolute Truth as a person. As a person. Yet all these impersonalists and those on the Paramatma level are still transcendental. Like when I first came to Krishna, on my way to the manor for a KC Sok retreat, we have like university programs for a day retreat in the manor. And I came here once, and one devotee picked me up. This is when I was very new to Krishna consciousness. I was still having so many impersonal conceptions, and I like the fact that I was not the body. I'm the spirit soul, and there's maybe this I can dissolve into this Brahman or something like that. And the devotee on the car would just be talking. He'd be really chilled. He's a very nice devotee. He would make comments like, while we're talking, we'd be like, "Oh, you're a transcendentalist," and I was like, "Okay, yeah, sure." But why did he not say I was a devotee or something like that? So I understood now, like, he said transcendentalist because even being on an impersonal platform is still transcendental, but still there's different degrees of transcendentalist, and the topmost transcendentalist, Srila Prabhupada said, is one who's a Krishna conscious person. So yeah, I was, from my experience, I tried doing all these impersonal meditations in the past, trying to dissolve my identity into the Brahman or something. I don't know what I was doing exactly, but I was basically withdrawing all my senses, everything from the external world, and just trying to go within, and just trying to be in pure consciousness. And yeah, I'm trying to, something called Brahman, just trying to dissolve into the light, effulgence. But the problem with the impersonal level is that although you could be so withdrawn from the world, I could never make it to that, to coming out of my body or something like that. There's no way. I'm still trapped in this body. I'm still trapped in this world. I'm still trapped, bound by my karma. I'm still, So I would always come back. I'll be in this really nice state of something, but as soon as I come back, all my problems are still there. All my desires are still there. Yeah, my mind is still polluted. All these things weren't being solved. Or nothing was being purified, and most of my day I would be outside in university, school. So it just doesn't, like Prabhupada, I think he gives an example in one lecture that it's like taking a rocket ship and flying to the moon. No, flying in space, but you have nowhere to land. So because the soul is naturally desiring variety and is pleasure-seeking, it's not satisfied simply by being in space, being in nothing. So yeah, it comes back down to earth. So this is also the position of if one actually reaches the Brahman level, that he goes to the Brahman, but the soul is still hankering for. He still has unfulfilled desires. So he will come back down. And also another example is, how long can you sit in an empty room by yourself?